longtime TCU broadcaster, and a great dude to boot. Landry Burdine joining us right now here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Good morning, Landry. How are you?
What's up, guys? How are we doing? Bucky, good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, man. Good to see you, too. This TCU team, I was talking to BK talking about from Gary Patterson on to Sonny Dykes. I think they've always believed that that Texas will fold if you just keep punching. If you just don't give in to this Texas group, you're going to be in the game, and eventually they'll just roll over and die. And I think for the last couple of years, it's just been that way. But when you lose as many guys as TCU has lost to the NFL, I mean, this wasn't just a physically tough football team, because they're still physically tough, I believe. But the talent that they lost, that's kind of too much to bear. I know you had backups, but those backups weren't like some of the guys that just left to go play NFL football, I don't believe.
No, and that's what, there's 9 guys seeing significant time actually starting in the NFL off of that team. I think there were 11 or 12 that actually are in camp still. So you got 2 or 3 that are on our practice squad, but the rest are playing a lot, in a lot of ways starting. And so, yeah, I mean, I think your point is right, Bucky. I think early on, and when TCU was in the Big 12, it was, hey, we're tougher. I don't think there was any question that was the message. I'll tell you, the last couple of years, it was, we're just better. Like, we had better players, we had better leaders, and you saw that last year, obviously, with that team. But that team last year was special, man. I mean, you don't want to harp on last year, but 80% of that offense, graduated. And the thing that I looked at was all those guys were long-termers on campus. And so there's kind of a referendum, I think, on the portal. I'm pro-portal, by the way, so I don't want this to sound like an anti-portal rant, but I think at some level that portal thing is going to be cyclical, right, where guys are going to be like, you know what, I think I need to have more homegrown guys than a bunch of mercenaries that come in and don't bleed this place, where it doesn't mean a lot. And so I think from the Frog standpoint, that last year was a prime example of homegrown, and this year you're seeing, hey, man, maybe we tried to plug some of the holes in the dam with some guys that, maybe didn't work out.
Yeah. Landry, what's, outside of the talent, like, what's been the biggest difference? TCU last year was so good in one-score games. It just felt like they always made winning plays down the stretch to find ways to win. And this year, it just hasn't been there. What's been the biggest change and the biggest reason for why just those close games aren't going TCU's way?
Experience and leadership. I think any football team you look at, when they struggle to execute when it really matters, a lot of that is experience, and then a lot of that is leadership. And when you got a guy like Max Duggan who's going to will his way to a first down, or Quentin Johnston, we beat Kansas last year on a ridiculous catch by Quentin Johnston late in the game, right, to make a play. And you just go through that whole season, and that's just kind of how it went. But that's, from my experience, and I'm sure Bucky would agree, been in a lot of these locker rooms too. It's guys that have been around each other a long time. Again, to that whole portal argument, right? And that trust each other because they've been around each other a long time, and not just playing football, but playing video games and hanging out all day, every day. Just, you learn about a dude, right? And so, that's what this team is struggling with a little bit. But I'll tell you this, they play hard, man. And this is a team that you're going to look up in 2 or 3 years and be like, okay, yeah, those dudes are pretty good. Problem is, they're just young, man. They're young at quarterback and young at corner. You lose a Thorpe Award winner in Trey Tomlinson. You lose an elite playmaker at linebacker in D. Winters. I could go on down the list. And when you replace that with young guys, man, there's growing pains. It just is. It's a game. I remember Andy Dalton at Texas when he was a true freshman threw several picks. I don't even know how many. He looked terrible. And then he winds up, look how good Andy Dalton was and is, right? And so, you got to grow up in this game. It takes a long time sometimes.
Well, I think, and that's I think the difference, what makes as making the difference for Texas right now. Yeah, they're talented, but they've got some veteran players, some leadership that's incredible, because there's a couple games here, Landry, that, in the past, this group would have said, oh no, where, even last week when you were up 20, that just would have folded up the tent. They'd have lost that game last week, but they've got a bunch of leaders on this defense right now and offensively. They're young on the offensive line, but they played in games together. They've done all the things that you've talked about because they've been around each other. So they're understanding about winning, what it takes. It's for some people, it may be what you have to do with the point spreads. But for them, it's just winning the game. And they're finding out that, you know what, to them, it only matters if you win by 1 point. You know, your coaches can yell and scream at you, but when you turn around to the coach and say, hey, coach, we're 8-1, we're 9-1. This is what we do. We win games. We're not worried about point spreads. We're worried about getting to the Big 12 championship. I think they have a bunch of those kids this year on this football team that can get them through, you know, the tight situations like having a backup quarterback go in for his first couple games. And that's leadership. That's not always the talent part. That's about the believing in the guy that's at your quarterback position right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And we're dealing with that a little bit, right? You know, I mean, Chandler Morris got hurt again. Josh Hoover, who's an incredibly talented kid, came in, played well against BYU. He's faced a lot of pressure against Kansas State and Tech, and that's really been one of the issues is dealing with that. And the offensive line hadn't dealt with it well either, to be honest with you. And, you know, I mean, you look at this Texas defensive front, they're elite, they're older, like you said.
Yep.
But then Bucky, I look at guys like, you know, Anthony Hill, you know, freshman linebacker. I mean, for that guy to get in and start playing significant minutes when he's facing the depth that linebacker that Texas has says a lot about him and his makeup. And I remember watching him in high school, and he was special. So, yeah, it's a talented team, man. Texas is really good. Texas is always good, it seems like, but they seem like more unified this year. They seem like they're just a better – I don't know, just a better room. And I think that probably says a lot for just from an outsider looking in, that's what it looks like to me. And it says a lot for the staff.
Yep. How about that? Landry Burdine, TCU color analyst, joining us here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Landry, you brought up the quarterback situation. Sounds like it'll be Josh Hoover again for TCU on Saturday. I know Chandler Morris has been close. I do wonder if there's some gamesmanship going on and maybe there's a chance Chandler Morris plays, but assuming it is Josh this weekend, you know, what does he do well? What does he maybe not do so well? What have you seen from him in his first few starts as a TCU Horned Frog?
Yeah, he's just young, man. Freshman quarterbacks are a pain in the butt. They just really are. I mean, it's just the very rarely do you have a guy that comes out and plays like a Manziel or, you know, whatever, right? And so he throws a great ball. He's got a great arm. He's got a really good head on his shoulders. He commands a lot of respect in the locker room as a freshman, which tells me a lot about his future. I do think he'll start. I don't think it's gamesmanship. I think Chandler's still coming back around a little bit. But, you know, it's just a phenomenal character guy and, you know, all the things you want. But he's young, you know, and so whenever you face a defense that's just bringing heat and you got – I mean, the game is fast, man. And if the last experience you had was in high school and you come out and you're playing Kansas State or Texas or some of these guys that I cannot explain the difference in speed of the game. It's like, I don't even know. It's a different sport, you know, at that level. And so it takes a while to adjust to that. And that's been the struggle is just turn it loose when he shouldn't have. Ill-advised throws, offensive line hadn't handled it well. And really at key moments in the red zone, that's really what's killed him.
Landry, your thoughts on the running back? I mean, you got a chance to see Bijan Robinson last year and the year before, and now looking at Jonathan Brooks. And there's Ollie Gordon. This conference has always had some kind of stud on one of these teams in the Big 12 has had the real top runner in the nation, close to it. And it looks like once again this conference is filled with guys. What do you think of Jonathan Brooks and what you've seen of him after watching Bijan?
I mean, Texas always seems like they got a dude, right? I mean, Jonathan Brooks is already like well over 1,000 yards. And I mean, from what I've seen, and you know, the thing about Texas is the depth too, because you look at the guys behind Jonathan Brooks, you're like, the guy would be starting on most teams, you know, and so for him to be getting the reps, I mean, he breaks tackles, and that's been the issue. That's honestly the thing I'm worried about maybe the most in this game is TCU's tackling hadn't been great, and last year against Bijan it was, right, and that's why they held him to however many yards they held him to, and so that's the key for me for this game is really being able to get to Jonathan Brooks early and get him on the ground and not allow a lot of yards after contact. Because if they do, then Texas is just going to hand the ball off, man. There's no reason to not do that. And so, yeah, I'm concerned. I mean, he's a hell of a player. But, you know, again, it's ever since I was in school, right, it looks like, you know, just Texas always has a running back. You're like, dang, I don't want to face that guy again this week.
Yeah.
Landry, your thoughts? You know, TCU's got a pretty good running back too. I know y'all lost your top two backs from last year, but Monty Bailey's putting together a really, really good season. Just based on watching some TCU football and the research I've done, it feels like the issue for y'all has been TCU's getting behind in these games, and they've got to throw it a lot more, and they can't use Imani Bailey as much as they would like. In Sonny Dykes' perfect world, is this hey, man, give the ball to Bailey 25, 30 times a game and hope that you can take the pressure off of your young quarterback a little bit?
I think they would like to. Yeah, I don't think realistically that's going to be a thing. Kansas State was a prime example. They said, we're not going to allow Imani Bailey to beat us. We're just not. We're going to blitz Josh Hoover. We're going to take away the run, and we're going to make Josh Hoover beat us. And Texas will have the same game plan. I don't have any doubt about that. So Imani Bailey is an elite level back. It was actually a pleasant surprise. I mean, think about it. The two guys that were in front of him are now starting. Amari DeMercado for the Arizona Cardinals and Kendrick Miller for the Saints. Both those guys are starting in the NFL right now.
Yeah. There's no doubt about how good they were. How about who's rushing the quarterback? TCU always has somebody that's rushing the quarterback. Somebody that I don't know is rushing the quarterback. There's an exceptional player there on that defensive line that's coming after this young quarterback.
Yeah, Paul Oyewale is probably the most talented defensive end at TCU right now. He's just a physical freak. He's the guy that, remember Dylan Horton is the guy last year that, he's starting for the Texans. Again, lost a really good player there. So Paul Oyewale would be the guy. He's young, struggled a little bit to kind of find his footing, but when he figures it out, it's fun to watch. So, it could be one of those games where you look up and you're like, that guy just had a Jerry Hughes moment or all the way back to Aaron Schobel moment or, one of those defensive ends for TCU where you're like, okay, that guy's really good. So I'm hoping that shows up because one of the things that we struggled with, that TCU struggled with is pressure and pressure out of base. That's going to be key is being able to get pressure out of base defense out of that front three.
Yeah, you brought up one of the keys there, Landry, but other keys for TCU to keep this game close and maybe even pull off the upset on Saturday.
It's when you're not a great football team, it's the basic stuff, right? So it's going to sound really vanilla, but it's protect the football in the red zone. They have been terrible with that. Just absolutely atrocious with that. And special teams have not been good. They really have not had any punt return game at all. If you think back to last year, think how key that was with Darius Davis returning punts. And you see what he's doing in the NFL now too for the Chargers. And so it's protect the football when it matters. And, special teams have got to be really good. And, really the biggest thing too is this team has gotten, when they get up, they're kind of a front running team. And that's a sign of a young team, right? So when they get up, they're pretty dangerous because they're feeling themselves a little bit. When they get down, they handle it like young guys would, and so hopefully they've grown up over the last 3 weeks because I've seen it times this season. It's not unique to them, by the way. This happens to a lot of young football teams. They get punched in the mouth by some older senior guys, and you're just like, ooh, I didn't really like that. And so they're going to have to battle. They're just going to have to stay in the fight. And if they do that, with it being a home game and everything else, it could wind up being a pretty good football game.
Yeah, well, you tend to start looking around and saying who's going to make the play.
That's it, right? Yeah.
Somebody else.
Who's the guy?
Yeah,
who's the guy that's going to step up? Yeah, no
absolutely. I understand what you're saying about that.
Yep.
That's it. Landry, a couple more here, and thank you very much for your time this morning. But one of our other shows had your broadcast partner, Brian Estridge, on early this week, and he gave a pretty passionate answer about this. So I want to ask you a similar question. To anybody who is questioning Sonny Dykes, saying, oh, well, he did what he did last year with all of Gary Patterson's players, is there any doubt in your mind that Sonny Dykes is still the right man for the job and he's going to turn TCU around and this year's just kind of an anomaly?
I think that is so absurd and so uneducated when people are fire Dykes, this is a year after TCU was in the national championship. It's absurd. Right. And that's fine that they're Gary's guys. Gary was my coach. I love Coach Patterson. We've been texting this morning. Gary didn't get him the national championship the year before with the same guys. Right. So, there is, you have to give credit where credit's due. Now, I think what you're seeing now is the everything comes at a price. Right. And so Sonny wanted to make some fundamental structural changes to the program that when you start winning, you're not going to make those. You're going to keep winning. And so now you're sitting there. Now you have to write the check, right? Now you have to write the check and deal with the pain of trying to make the changes that you need in your program. And that's what he's doing. Sure, Gary Patterson was a hell of a talent recruiter. Everybody knows that. but Sonny Dykes won at Cal. Do you know how hard it is to win at Cal?
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to win at Louisiana Tech in Ruston, Louisiana? It's hard to win. And he is an elite level football coach. And I laugh when I see – and there's TCU fans that are doing that.
Sure.
I'm like, can you guys not have some revisionist history? Man, when I was a junior, we won one football game. One. One. And we tore the goalpost down because it was SMU and we kept it from going to a bowl game. That's where this program was. And so – you look at what Gary's done, you look at what Sonny's done. Sonny took him to the next level. And so I think it's absolutely absurd that people would even question his ability to coach football. He's phenomenal. He's really, really good at what he does.
Should have got another 5-year contract just for the fact of getting to a national championship and actually having a football program the following year, losing 11 guys to the NFL that are actually playing in the NFL. It's hard to even get to practice after that, losing that kind of talent. It's just amazing, really.
Yeah, no doubt. And this team has looked really good at times. I mean, it's been a head scratcher for Sonny. Some of the mistakes that they've made, he's just like, and when we talked to him post game, he's like, guys, we just made too many mistakes. That's it. We just and a lot of that to me goes back to trust and guys being around each other a long time. Yep. And that's really what I point to for the struggles for this team. It's the dudes on the field. It's not the coaches. That's why they're struggling. And that's not a knock on the dudes on the field. They're trying to figure it out together. And like I said, they play hard. I'll give them that.
Yeah. Landry, last thing for me, TCU, I think, considers Texas a rival, and TCU's obviously had Texas's number since joining the Big 12. How much would a win this weekend? I mean, hell, TCU's fighting for a bowl game, right? They've got to win 2 of these last 3 to get to a bowl game, so you've got that element there. But just almost this season aside, just how much would a win in the final TCU-Texas game mean for the program and maybe mean for the fan base too?
Anytime you beat Texas is fun. I don't know that, Texas has not been TCU's Super Bowl. I think that the series that during the time that TCU's been in the Big 12 has been so lopsided. It's just not, Texas hadn't really held up its end of the bargain. Now they caught Texas when they were down. So it's not something when TCU beats Texas where I'm texting my Texas buddies, because I know that, that stuff comes back around. And so, but look, any win's big. It's hard to win football games, and so any win is big. And whether it's Texas or Baylor or Oklahoma here to close out the season, they're trying to get to 2. I mean, that's it. And Texas could be one of those 2, and that really is what it's more about. It's not, Texas is leaving or nobody cares. I mean, like in the room, nobody cares. It's fun for us to talk about. It really is, but you're asking me about the football team, and they don't care. They just want to get
the players don't seem. They know it's another game coming up, and they got to try to win that football game.
That's it, and they know there's some really big, fast dudes out in front of them.
Yeah,
so they're focused on that. Yeah,
just like that. Landry, always enjoy catching up, man. Keep up the great work. Thanks so much for the time this morning, and hopefully we get the chance to see you soon.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you, Landry. Appreciate it. Good to see you, buddy.
You got it. Good to talk to you.